Here we go. All right, good evening, everybody. I have 6 o'clock, and I will go ahead and call the Anacortes City Council meeting for March 23rd, 2026 to order. Would you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll proceed to announcements and committee reports.
Mayor Walters?
Mr. Courier.
May I move to excuse
Yes,
Mr. Young?
now is a great time. Motion and a second to excuse Mr. Young. If there's no objection, Mr. Young is excused. All right. Now we'll move to announcements and committee reports. Next slide, please. The Anacortes Senior Activity Center has a couple of notable activities going on that they want to highlight for you. First of all, recreational ukulele. Class for beginners, no experience required, Fridays starting April 3rd. You can make a $5 suggested donation to get into that class, and away you go. Also, their Renowned Aging Mastery Program will be Wednesdays, April 15th through June 3rd. You can find out about both of these classes, and you can register at anacorteswa.gov/556. Also, this week, March 23rd through the 27th, is a Meals on Wheels fundraising event. So as you can see on the screen here, there are any number of events this week related to Meals on Wheels where they are going to be soliciting fundraising from you. As council knows and others may know, Meals on Wheels in Skagit County will be entering a period of transition in the second half of this year, making fundraising for Meals on Wheels all the more important. So for more information, you can learn more at the Senior Center or at anacorteswa.gov/2019. The Parks and Rec Department is having the Egg Dash at Storvik Park on April 3rd at 6 o'clock till 6:01. So be there or you will be very late and there won't be any eggs. The Youth Track and Field starts April 20th and registration is now open. And all of their summer recreation programs are listed and you can sign up for them at anacorteswa.gov/490. The Community Development Block Grant that the city receives is subject to an annual plan process whereby we determine how that money is spent on various projects. The project application period has closed, but public comment on that will resume, is it currently in progress? Written comment is in progress, and there's a public hearing on April 27th. You can learn more at anacorteswa.gov/174. The Guimas Ferry will be out for maintenance May 4th through 17th. This is a particular annual favorite event for Old Town. They will have passenger-only service. That'll be provided by Air Launch beginning May 4th at 6:30 a.m., and they'll follow the non-peak sailing schedule. Next week, we don't have a meeting, but the week after that, we will have information about how we will handle traffic and parking in the area during the Guimas Ferry maintenance outage, and we'll provide that during one of these announcements and through distribution to neighbors. If you want information about that and other projects and issues that the city's got going on, you can learn that at anacorteswa.gov/projects. We're really trying to get that information out onto our website so that you can learn it there instead of through strangers on the internet. And finally, if you have unwanted firearms, you are required under the statute to safely store those firearms, but if you don't want them anymore, Anacortes Police Department will take them off your hands. You can call 360-428-3211, the non-emergency number, and arrange for you to drop off your firearms at the police station. You want to call that number in advance. Don't just walk into the police station with them. But we will take care of them. We will dispose of them for you. Again, this is voluntarily. If you would like to dispose of firearms that you don't need anymore, we would love to get them out of circulation. So you can make arrangements with APD to make that happen. Council, I understand that there are no committee reports this evening, but we do have a couple of upcoming events. Again, no council meeting next week because it's the 5th Monday, and then the State of the City address and a normal council meeting will follow on April 6th, and then the All-Department Quarter 1 update work session will be April 13th, and that will be nothing but the All-Department Quarter 1 update work session, so you can plan on that. All right, Council. It is now time for public comment. We had nobody signed up in advance, and I'll ask staff to check to see if anybody is online. Is anyone interested in the audience at making public comment at this point? Seeing none, and staff, any, and nobody online, we can skip ahead through public comment and proceed to the consent agenda. Council.
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Hunt.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. No discussion is allowed on the consent agenda, so if there's no objection, we'll take a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. The consent agenda is approved. All right, our first item of other business is an update from the Skagit Tourism Bureau. This will be presented by Kristen Keltz of the Bureau. Go ahead and adjust the mic so it's at a comfortable location, and welcome. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mayor Walters and Council. We're excited to be here tonight to do a brief update on what the Skagit Tourism Bureau has been working on for the past couple of years. So I'll start with just a quick introduction of our staff. We've got Elizabeth Tyler here. She's our VP of Marketing and Operations. Cody Hurd's our Sports Development Manager. And then we just brought Genesee Funston on as a part-time Marketing and Communications Coordinator. We also have one of our board members, Jessica Kaiser, here with us tonight as well. So I'll just start with some marketing and advertising. So we've got our marketing highlights from 2025. We've had some really good results. Our return on ad spend is about 110 to 1. We had almost 18,500 overnight stays, and our visitor spend was about $12.1 million. So we're able to capture that number through a media attribution program that we have, where we are directly targeting visitors and then retargeting, and then we're actually tracking when they come into town and spend credit cards. So it's countywide, so it's all aggregate. We can't dive into specific businesses, but that's up from about $3.6 million in 2024. So we had a pretty nice increase. We're able to see where our visitors are coming from. You'll notice a majority of that is from Washington State, kind of that Seattle metro market area, California, Oregon, Texas is a bit of an anomaly that, as many of you know, will be a lot of our refinery stays that show up in some of that data. Along with that 6+ days stay is a lot of the refinery turnaround as well. We do have the 2 refineries geofenced, so we're able to pull that out for some visitor tracking as well. Oh, sorry. There we go. So this is just a quick list of what we're doing. Most of our advertising is digital so that we can really see that return on investment. We've got some print magazines that we do with Northwest Travel and Life, the State Visitor Guide, the Cascade Loop, and the Scenic Washington Travel. Our social media continues to grow. We're up about 11% on our Facebook and 14.5% on our Instagram. We worked really hard to get all of our handles aligned. So @Visit Skagit Valley is what we're using for all of our platforms. And then if anyone has anything that they want promoted, just #Magic Skagit. We try to share as much as we can on our social media. One of the big things that we were able to accomplish last year is a brand new website, and so we were able to wireframe that to the back end of our CRM platform, and so our stakeholders have an extranet where they can go in and update their listings and photos and add events and things like that. We're super excited. Our website actually won an award at the State of Washington Tourism Conference in October, and Elizabeth won the Rising Star Award as well. We've got some print publications that we do. We work now with I Love Skagit as the official visitor guide for the county. We are hopefully going to have some of those 2026 copies in our hands in the next week. We reformatted it. It's a brochure booklet size now, and we'll be able to spread out our distribution a little bit more, and hopefully people will hold on to it in that smaller format. So we're very excited about that. We also did a birding brochure through a grant through the Port of Seattle. And along with that brochure, we were able to create a video and do some targeted marketing for bird watching during the off season. And then, of course, we updated our just our evergreen brochure that had not been updated in about 10 years. So we also have a hiking guide that's going to be out hopefully beginning of April. So we're quickly working on that. We worked on an Always Here campaign for our Canadian visitors. So as you know, some of that traffic coming down south has slowed down quite a bit, and so we are just letting folks know that we respect their decision not to come, but we'll be here when they're ready, and so encouraged folks to put the flyer up. So we have two sides to our website. We have the stakeholder side, which is all the data, statistics, messaging, if any of our stakeholders get called by the media, that kind of thing. And then we also have a visitor-facing page for Canadians to plan their trip. We are doing public relations. We work with a great firm out of Edmonds that knows Skagit Valley really well and has a great regional and national reach. We had 93 stories covered in 2024, up slightly from 2024, and we've hosted writers in the county from 11 different publications, including some national and international media. So our data, so this is one thing that we're really diving into. We started using Datafy last January, and so we're able to get some really good information. We've geofenced several locations throughout the county, and so we're able to pull some reporting for a lot of our stakeholders on events and different things like that. So we can get, visitation by years, total trips, where they're coming from, that kind of thing. We also get reporting from the Smith Travel Research, which is hotel stays, so we can get occupancy and average daily rates for our hoteliers in the area, as well as the AirDNA, which tracks all of our short-term rentals in the area. So we have been able to put together a lodging tax rubric scoring sheet that we've shared with all of the lodging tax committees throughout the county, and then a report that we can, it's a template for reporting for any of the events that they can use for their application and their end of the year reporting. So our tourism economics impact data, so this is from 2024. We expect to get the 2025 information the first week in May, and so we'll share that at our tourism summit. So you'll see the savings per household is about $673. It's up 2.5%. What this means is they take all of the revenue from visitors and tourism in the area, and they calculate that revenue that's brought in from taxes for that spend, and that's just an estimated savings that people are seeing on their property taxes. It's not like a line item where you get to deduct it. It's just an estimate. Like if we didn't have visitors, property taxes in Skagit County would be about almost $700 higher. We provide about 3,800 jobs in Skagit County, and sales for tourism is about $386 million. So it's a pretty big, important thing in Skagit County. So I'm just going to run through this real quick. We've been very successful with the State of Washington Tourism on receiving several grants. We were able to get all of our photography and videography purchased. We didn't own anything that we could use for marketing or our website, so we got that done. We got two data grants. The first one was to have somebody come in and help us analyze all of our data, put together reporting and things like that. And the second one was to help with the feasibility study for our indoor sports complex and an economic impact calculator for sports tourism. So we were able to track a couple of our tournaments that happened this year. We also got the Port of Seattle grant. So we had a couple billboards up at the SeaTac Airport in Concourse C, and then the birding campaign, as I mentioned. We also received the Rural Tourism Support Program grant through the State of Washington Tourism. They choose one county per year, and so we were very blessed to do that. And we went through a steering committee process and then some different workshops that we held from about October into November, and then we were able to receive a finalized report that's up on our website. We now have an outdoor recreation task force, an arts and culture task force, a food and farms task force, and our sports commission. So those are kind of our four main areas of focus, and each of the different task forces have a list of projects and programs that we'll be working on. So we also do travel shows and conferences, and so Elizabeth is going to Go West Summit next week, and we'll be meeting with international tour operators and some domestic tour operators. The IITA, IPW are all also tour operators, so really focused on getting on their itineraries to get them to bring groups here. We also attend the Travel and Words Conference. We did that in 2024 and 2025, and we're super excited to actually be hosting that conference this September. So it was a really great thing that we were able to do. We've met with over 150 tour operators in our appointments. We hosted 19 tour operators from several different countries in partnership with the State Tourism Office and the Port of Seattle, and had several media and tour operator FAMs that came through as well. So just real quick film. So we are the official film liaison for the State Film Office. And so we were very excited to host a FAM tour here in November. And we were able to take them from Anacortes all the way up into New Halem. This QR code, if you click on it, you can actually add to our database. So we're always looking for places that are film-friendly, houses, old barns, the good, bad, the ugly. They want to see it all. And so we are in talks all the time with different location managers. So this is just some of the, recognize some of these faces here. I've mentioned the Sports Commission. So we stood up a Sports Commission in January of 2025. And so we're about a year and 3 months in, and we have put together a full database of our fields and facilities in the area, a calendar of events for all of the tournaments so stakeholders know when to prepare for large activities. We've joined the Sports ETA, which is the National Association for Sports Commissions and Tournament Directors. And so we're going to be going down to that conference next month and meeting hopefully with about 40 to 50 tournament directors from all over the country to try to get them to bring tournaments here. We also completed the feasibility study for an indoor sports complex, which we're looking at. We've almost nailed down a location and hope to have a facility that we can use year-round for a plethora of events: wrestling, basketball, volleyball, cheerleading, dance, all the things there. So it's one thing that we are lacking is that indoor space. We also last year hosted the Ultimate Frisbee Championship for the D1 and the D3, and we know that with our economic impact calculator, it was about $1 million impact to our community. And then we've sent out several RFPs for events in 26 and 27. So just a quick plug for our Tourism Summit. We've got some great speakers coming in. David Blandford, the CEO for the State of Washington Tourism, will be there to speak. Our Datify contact who will talk about data and trends and all of that will be there, and then we'll have a presentation on SEO and Google changes that are happening that impact businesses. So that is my quick presentation. I know I flew through a lot of the slides. I'm happy to answer questions, and then I just have a video to end.
Council, any questions?
Mayor
Mr.
Walters.
Fantini?
I just wanted to give a little bit of appreciation specifically around the Always Here campaign that you did targeting Canadian visitors. I thought that was really awesome and very timely for us, especially here in Anacortes. I'm also very interested to learn more about that film liaison things that you have going on. And one other thing, and we don't have to go through it right now, because it sounds like at the May 7th forum you're going to address it. I would like to hear a little bit more about that tax break number and where that kind of comes from. But thank you for the work that you guys that you're all doing. It's timely and important right now when we're looking for more tourists. So
yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we can certainly chat about the film. So we really are just that liaison with the State Film Office. Location managers will call us. We'll try to help navigate, permitting and who they need to contact, where they need to go. I get emails all the time of, I need a old style logging cabin to film something. We had the History Channel up, and so it's our job. We know our areas, and so they count on us to help kind of find those locations for them, and work through permitting processes and things like that. Yeah.
You had a $12 million number on one of your earlier slides, but then a $386 million in sales on the 13th slide. Can you talk about
the
what
difference.
each of those numbers corresponds to?
Yeah, so the 12.1 $1 million number comes directly from our attribution from our marketing campaign. So that's the dollars we spent and the dollars we bring in. That $386 million is a tourism economics study that the state of Washington does for every community. So that's everything related, hotels, restaurants, anything visitor related. They add up those through sales tax numbers through the state. So, but that 12 is just the particular advertising we did for that year.
So you didn't do $12 million in advertising, right?
No. That is what they calculated in for credit card spend into Skagit County. So we spent, Elizabeth, I think one of our ad is about $60,000 total for the year, and then another one's about $50,000. So.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm happy to clarify. Yeah, happy to clarify that for sure.
Council?
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Cleland McGrath?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
You over there?
she hit the button faster.
Could you, one of the things we always find difficult is understanding what our return on investment is. So can you talk about how you're using QR codes or the geolocating, geofencing, and who has access to that information, whether it's the chamber or other nonprofits that are putting on events? Could you share some more of how that whole technology works?
Yeah, so Datify does two things. It's our data dashboard, which shows us where people are coming from, how long. Then they also have their media attribution site, and that's where we do a lot of our advertising campaigns through. So we are like specifically targeting specific visitors based on the data that comes from our dashboard. And so let's say we spend $25,000 in our ad spend. They're able to target, retarget, and then they track those credit cards. So they say, okay, from this $25,000 ad campaign, you were able to bring into Skagit County through their proprietary credit card spend, $2 million or whatever that number is. So we can kind of correlate our advertising campaigns to what is actually spent. And they give us very conservative numbers. It's about 60%. And then also we know that a lot of the hotel spend is actually made online, like through third parties. So they're only capturing credit card swipes in the community.
Mr. Courier?
Yeah, I was just curious too. We've certainly felt the impact of a decrease in Canadian tourism here in Anacortes, and I didn't see anything listed there as far as their impact in Skagit Valley. Do you have data that shows kind of how that's declined and so forth? Do you track that? Just curious.
Yeah, unfortunately, with the data that we have, the laws in Canada are very different for cell phone tracking, and so we, unfortunately, at this point, they don't have the mechanism to do the international tracking. We track on our website border crossings. Longwoods Internationals does a lot of resident sentiment surveys and things like that. So we're able to track like, okay, at this point, 61% said that they would not come. Now we're at 56%. But as far as the actual number of visitors, we unfortunately don't have that data yet.
What data do you have that measures that impact? Like you're saying, border crossings, have you kind of looked at the impact of that on Skagit Valley? And what's the
right
latest on
now,
that?
yeah, it's really tough. Right now, it's border crossings, and then any of the information we're getting from some of these bigger third parties. It won't specifically be into Skagit County. We just don't have the technology yet to track exactly how many less are coming right into Skagit County. And Elizabeth was going to correct me on something.
Can you, Elizabeth, could you come up to the mic?
Sorry.
Hello, thank you. I just wanted to address one other question you had about what nonprofits and chambers have access to, excuse me, our dashboard and marketing. And actually, so the dashboard, we have that event template reporting set up for any nonprofit or organization that would like to request some of that data. And then we do have a partnership with nonprofits and chamber organizations. Jessica is actually participating in it this year to take advantage of some of that co-op marketing with that digital tracking. Someone sees an ad on their cell phone, we can track that exact cell phone into the county.
Thank you. Sorry, I did not get to that. So I just have a 2-minute video, if I have time to do that.
Council, sound like we're ready for that? Let's go.
Don't let go. There ain't no let's let go. Take me home. I'm holding on, dear. There ain't no love like our love. There ain't no love like our love.
Brought a tear to me eye. Looks like a county I'd like to visit.
And that was done through our grant, through the State of Washington Tourism. We were able to bring on a film crew and cover the whole county. And putting it in 2.5 minutes is very challenging to capture everything.
Nice job.
Okay, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All right, council. We're going to move on from that to our waste management annual report. I assume that there will be a fancy video at the end of this report, though, as well.
We'll see. We'll see how lucky you get.
Mr. Ludeman, do you want to go ahead and introduce this item?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the audience. Most of you know I've been working with Waste Management on the new 5-year contract we have coming before you in the next council meeting in 2 weeks. But tonight we thought it'd be great to bring them forward and have them do their annual report. So if there's any questions for me ahead of time, I can introduce our speaker.
Sounds like no questions at this point.
Okay, I'll introduce Robin Freeman from WM.
Thanks, Will. So, I usually work in teams, so I'm going to have to ask for a confirmation. Do you see me or the slide deck?
We see you.
Okay, now do you see the slide deck?
No.
Okay, let me need to, let's see. I'm in share screen, but it doesn't say share button.
Have you been promoted to a presenter? And if not, can some, yes? Okay, staff indicate you are a presenter.
Oh, wait.
Oh, there we go. We see that you have started screen sharing.
Okay, do you see
We
the
see-
PowerPoint, me or my family
We see
members?
your desktop.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Sorry for that. Let me just move this.
There we go. Now we see your PowerPoint slideshow.
Thank you so much. Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Good evening. My name is Robin Friedman. I am the Senior Manager for Public Sector Services at WM. And me and my team, Grace Fletcher, who will introduce herself, and Chris Clark are also here this evening to walk you through our annual report from 2025. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to speak this evening.
Good evening, Council. My name is Grace Fletcher, and I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Anacortes with WM, and I'm very excited to be here tonight. Thank you for having us.
And good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Clark. I'm the District Manager for WM of Skagit, which services the City of Anacortes. And I think I will go right into it, Robin, if you're good. Okay. So, again,
thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, so I'm the district manager of WMF Skagit, and our operations service the recycling and compost in the city of Anacortes. And I wanted to start the presentation to go over a few of our commitments and values that our company and our employees lead with every day. And it's our commitments and values that we utilize to strive for world-class service, safety, and providing the service to your great community there. So I want to share for you the values, and then I'm going to get a little further into safety. So our core values are people first, success with integrity, diversity and inclusion, our customers, safety, and the environment. So that's what we lead with every day. But I want to stick with safety for a minute because as a team, I can speak for our team in WMF Skagit. Safety is what we really strive for and is at the forefront of our mind every day. Our safety vision is we strive to make health and safety the foundation of our work, guiding each step we take. We value every voice, protect our communities, and get home safe every day. And that's the goal. That's the mission. Each one of our employees, we want them to get home to their families, get home to their loved ones every day. And the safety promise you see on the screen is the promise that we all take as employees to provide the service and to lead every one of our actions. And it's something that, again, that we strive for, and it's at the forefront of all our employees' minds to really be safe for our employees, but also safe for the communities that we service, including Anacortes. If you go to the next slide, Robin, I want to talk a little bit about some highlights from our operations in 2025. We were successfully able to service both curbside recycling and compost to over 11,000 customers, both residential, multifamily, and commercial customers. From our drivers, to our public outreach team, we provide a reliable, outstanding customer experience for all residents and businesses in Anacortes. Some highlights from our service are we support events such as the Anacortes Arts Festival with recycling services. In 2025, we also now accept paper and plastic cups in our curbside recycling. So those are things like Starbucks cups that can now go into the recycling bin, which is great. And another cool update in 2025 is we included a new technology called Smart Truck. And to get a little into that, what that is it's a full 360-degree camera view of our trucks. And what this allows us to do is, for one, again, it's back to safety. We can now see what's going on around the whole truck when our drivers are servicing. So there's a huge safety benefit to that. But it also allows us to see what goes into our trucks, and it also, which allows us to provide more efficient and clean recycling. But it also allows us to provide really great customer service because we can see when every can is dumped and, again, what goes into our trucks. So through that technology, it's allowed us to have visibility to a lot of things to, again, provide better service and be more safe out there. I would also just like to say on behalf of the team at WMF Skagit, we really truly do enjoy servicing the city of Anacortes. And my guys knew I was going to be on this call today. They wanted me to say hi to everybody. And yes, we really enjoy servicing Anacortes. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Grace now. And you're going to go over some stats here, right?
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah.
So yes, on this slide here, we are looking at the tonnage from Anacortes in 2025, and this really tells a success story about Anacortes. So in 2025, the community diverted nearly 4,750 tons of material through recycling and organics. And what I really want to draw everyone's attention to is how much Anacortes residents are using the organics program. So if you look at that pie chart on the far left, that's where I'll be focusing. So in 2025, residents alone diverted more than 2,600 tons of organics. And that's important because that's food scraps and yard waste being kept out of the landfill and put to real beneficial use. And this is one of the most impactful actions a community can really take with their waste, as organics diversion keeps this valuable commodity out of the landfill and supports healthy soils. Seeing organics also outperform recycling in the residential sector tells us that people in Anacortes understand the food and yard waste program and are using it correctly, which is amazing. And these results are really driven by Anacortes' commitment to offering organic service and your residents consistently participating. Our role at WM is really just to make sure the system supports the success both operationally on Chris's end and educationally on mine. And we are super excited to be in your community doing so. And then Robin, you can kick it to the next slide. Awesome. So behind these tonnage numbers, there's a lot of behind the scenes education work with both recycling and compost that's highlighted on this slide here. So each year we contact residential customers who are flagged for contamination or non-recyclables in their recycling cart or non-organics material in the organics cart. We also send recycling education letters to multifamily property managers around the city. So in 2025, our outreach staff provided direct technical assistance to 35 residential customers who had 3 or more instances of contamination either in their recycling or their organics cart in each quarter. And this outreach was based on what was actually found in their recycling or organics carts, not just kind of a general message. And In the science-based framework we use in our education, we know that this specific feedback is what keeps Anacortes educated and accountable. This is what really drives the behavior change. So for multifamily properties, as I mentioned, we sent recycling education letters to 223 properties across Anacortes, giving managers and residents very clear, consistent recycling guidance that they're able to use all year round. And the goal of all of this work is to equip Anacortes residents with the tools to recycle correctly, reduce contamination, and just help everyone succeed within the recycling system. And this kind of targeted outreach is effective in improving material quality of our recyclables and reducing contamination for the residents in the city. And education is a really essential step of our process because when customers understand the why and the how, contamination goes down and this system just works better for everybody. Next slide, please. Now, it's super important to us that Anacortes residents can reach our team easily. So on the WM Northwest website, residents can reach out to us to ask questions, whether it's about a cart replacement or service level adjustment. As you can see on that screenshot on the slide, residents can contact us really easily through virtual chat, email, and phone, and they can easily request changes to their account or their service through an online form we created to make sure that requests are streamlined in our system. Residents can also use this website to learn about what can go into their recycling container, organics cart, and garbage containers to improve their own sorting habits. And we also up here have holiday schedules, recycling, compost, and garbage guides in 8 different languages. And we have service alerts as well so that residents can stay informed and up to date. Awesome, and I will pass it over to Robin.
Thanks, Grace. So I'd like to just give a real shout out to the Anacortes City staff. I've been working with them over the last few months on a potential new contract. And we're so thrilled that Anacortes would like to continue working with us. And it has been a real treat to work with Will as well as other staff. So thank you so much. I wanted to point out how we'll use Smart Truck for contamination monitoring in potentially the new contract. So as Chris described to you, we use Smart Truck cameras all around the vehicle as well as GPS so that we can capture images not only of the driver and of our surroundings, but also the recycling carts and the organic carts that actually get dumped into the truck. Even though it's an automated system, the driver pulls up and what we can see now using cameras is what's deep inside the cart, not just what's sitting on top. These images that we capture allow us to really look at contamination, whether it's incorrect materials that are in the cart or overflows or even extra material next to the cart. And then it gives us a really good understanding of how we can provide technical assistance to customers through education and outreach. The data will help us confirm where the contamination is occurring. We will be able to track trends by route, neighborhood, or customer type. And as I mentioned, we can target education and outreach to customers who may have 3 or more times in which they've had contamination in their carts, over 10%. And we'd also like to support fair and accurate service auditing so that we can apply a contamination charge where applicable. This approach will be consistent, objective, and proactive, helping us improve recycling quality without adding work for our drivers. And as I mentioned, these cameras will capture images of recycling, and these images will be available to customers as well as city staff so that we can really walk through where the contamination charges are coming from and how we can support the city and our customers to ensure that the contamination is decreased over time. That is our 2025 annual report summary, and we truly appreciate your business, and we look forward to having a new contract with you. And if appropriate, we'd love to open it up for questions if there are some.
Certainly. Council, do you have any questions?
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Moulton?
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, all three of you, and I really appreciate the information about how you're tackling contamination, because we know that's an ongoing problem, and you almost can't do enough education and outreach. My question is, when you respond to contamination, say a driver will see on the spot over 10%, I think is the number you mentioned. When you reach out to that customer, in what way do you do that? Like phone or mail or email, or how does that work?
Yeah, great question. I can take this on. So each quarter, I receive a report back from our drivers on which residents had those 3 or more contamination incidents, and I go into their account and contact them via phone. And if they have an email on their account, I will send out an email as well. So both email and phone.
Oh, that's great. So that's quarterly. And then do you ever, I know some places use oops tags, but that's like tagging a car, but that would require drivers to get out of the truck, and I don't know if that's something that's practical for you to ever do, so they know on the spot, like, hey, I threw Christmas lights in my recycling, for example.
I'd just like to add, Chris, you go ahead. We can all contribute.
Yeah, I will say we will use oops tags, but that's when it's a very blatant, and the driver can actually see it because they're dumping it into the back behind them. They have a little camera. They don't spend a lot of time. We're asking them, and again, back to safety, I'm asking them to focus on everything going around them and not spend so much time looking at what's in their hopper at all times. So if it's blatant, they'll see it. But that's where the third eye technology really comes in, because it takes care of that for us. It's the camera that's just constantly looking at the material that goes in the hopper.
Okay, great. And so have you found success with those outreach efforts, or is it too soon to tell? I mean, with the people that have contaminated a high percentage, more than 3 times, can you follow up on that in any way and see that it's diminishing?
Yes. Grace, do you want to follow up?
Yeah, I can go ahead and take this. Yes, we can measure that, and that's also a benefit of smart truck technology. Robin spoke about targeting education and outreach and how it can help with that. But one other thing that's really cool about smart truck is that we can measure how effective our campaigns are. So it is something that we are able to measure, and we are able to see those numbers go down and see that the people who are contaminating 3 or more times, they're not the same people that I called last quarter. So we're not getting a high volume of repeat contaminators every single quarter.
Great, that's really good news, thank you. And my last question is more of a general one about recycling and garbage. I noticed that the 2025 tonnages for recycling and organics are slightly lower than they were for 2024. And I'm wondering if you have a theory about why that is. And I think it would be a good question for city staff at some point for our total garbage tonnage. Is it all going down a little bit, or is it just the recycling and organics going down, and how does that compare to the garbage tonnage? I don't really expect an answer right now, except for if you have an idea of why the organics and recycling tonnage has gone down that amount.
So I'll take a stab at that. I'm curious to see what Chris and Grace say, but a lot of it has to do with the weather, to be honest. Sometimes when it's wet, more lawn service, more cutting in the lawn, more gardening, and that increases the compostables, the organics. If it's extremely dry, there's less lawn mowing. So weather has a lot to do with what goes on in terms of year over year and the trends that you may see.
Yep, I was going to echo that. It has to do a lot to do, especially with organics. It's a very cyclical, seasonal commodity, and so it tracks with the weather. And recycling can be the same way. It could be, a lot of rain. Depends on when we, it'll affect our tonnages depending on how wet that recycling material is as well.
Oh, right, okay, thank you.
I also have an answer from the staff side of that. Thank you to Mrs. Hunt for asking a question earlier so we could check on it. But our tonnage for garbage is actually down about the same percentage as recycling over the last same year period. So it's kind of interesting.
Oh,
Seems
good.
like all disposables were down over the 25 versus 24.
Good, I'm glad to hear that the garbage didn't go up by the same amount.
Exactly.
Recycling and organics went down. Thank you very much.
Council, any other questions?
Mayor Walters.
Mr. McDougall?
Yeah, actually kind of a curiosity because I like stats and trends and stuff. Since the deployment of the smart truck technology, do you have a sense for how much reduction in, I guess, contamination? Like, has it gone from 10% of loads down to 5 or yeah, do you have a sense for like what the trend line looks like?
Well, most of your neighboring cities actually also have contamination monitoring and a contamination charge, but some cities don't have that. The smart truck technology is not ubiquitous. It will be in the near future. And so it's hard for us to answer that. But I will say that in the cities like Anacortes, where we're implementing a robust education and outreach plan plus a contamination charge, we are seeing a difference. As Grace said, we have very few repeat customers, and so we do think we're making a difference, and we do truly believe that there is a decrease in contamination and an increase in recycling, but we believe that it's because of the holistic approach that we're using.
Great, thank you.
Council, any other questions? Well, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you for your efforts with respect to education as well. If there are opportunities for us to collaborate on that, please don't hesitate to reach out because there's certainly no end to how much education that we can do to get people to recycle correctly.
Thank you. And thank you so much, City of Anacortes, for your business and city staff. It's been wonderful working with them too. Thank you.
Yes, Will is particularly a treat. Yes.
I would agree.
All right.
Everyone.
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you. Good evening.
All right. Our next item is Resolution 3206, authorization for Ship Harbor grant applications. Nicole, take it away.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Don't need the glasses right now. Good evening, City Council members and Mayor and members of the audience. My name is Nicole Johnston, and I'm the Parks Manager, and I'm the Project Manager on the Ship Harbor project. For those of you who don't know on Council, back in December 27th of 2022, about 100 feet of the boardwalk washed away after a epic king tide. And so we're going to take advantage of this opportunity to not only replace the existing boardwalk, but also improve some of the trails that you see from the ferry, Washington State Ferry Terminal side that lead down to the beach. So I'll get into that a little bit more. But me being here tonight is basically checking a box for RCO. They want me to come in front of you guys and let you guys know that I'm applying for 2 grants. I'm getting your support. So I'm going to talk to you guys tonight about these 2 grants, okay?
And RCO is the Recreation and Conservation Office?
Yep. So we're looking to get $1 million for phase 1 of the Ship Harbor Boardwalk. To reach this amount, we're applying for 2 grants with, like Mayor Walter said, the Washington Recreation and Conservation Office. The first grant is the ALEA grant, Aquatic Lands Enhancement Account, and the second grant is the WWRP Washington Wildlife and Recreation Program Water Access Category Grant. The ALEA grant, I'm going for $500,000. The WWRP, I'm matching the ALEA grant with the WWRP grant. That's for $400,000. 10% of the match must be non-state, non-federal. So I'm going to be asking for $100,000 from Parks Foundation or other resources to reach that $1 million for the first phase. The deadline to apply for these grants is April 30th, 2026. And to be eligible to apply for these grants, I need the city to agree to this authorization resolution. And RCO Funding Board approves the grants after the legislature adopts the budget, which is in July 1st of 2027. Here tonight, you see sorry it's so small, but 15% drawings that we have received from Gray and Osborne. The highlighted in yellow areas are what we're hoping will be phase 1. So we're replacing the boardwalk, and then we're also going to start the process of, from the Washington State Ferry Terminal, a paved trail down to the beach area, to a viewing platform. And then I just kind of circled the project site for those of you who want a more visual of that. This is a project that we have support not only from the city, but from the Samish and from the Port of Anacortes. Phase 1 will be, like I've mentioned, will be replacing the damaged boardwalk, essentially following the same footprint of the boardwalk that used to exist there, and the installation of the ADA access paved path from the ferry lanes down to a viewing platform near the beach. During phase 1, we will also apply for the requiring permitting. Any questions?
Nicole, could you talk about why it's important to provide a path from the ferry terminal?
Absolutely, because there's millions of visitors that come to the Washington State Ferry Terminal, and they have formed their own paths down to the beach, and we just feel like it's responsible of the city and to work with the port to come up with a plan that is ADA and is going to protect the area, the wetland, keep people out of the wetland, and hopefully get everyone safely down to a viewing platform, and then eventually phase 2 steps down to the beach.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Mayor Walters?
Mr. Fantini?
I'm very happy to support this. I mean, I think it's an easy one. It's grant-funded, cultural partnership with the Samish Nation, ADA access, ferry terminal connectivity, environmental restoration. Sounds like a pretty good one to me.
Council, any other questions? Seeing none, you have a resolution in your packet that would authorize the grant applications that Ms. Johnston described.
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Cleland-McGrath.
I move that Resolution 3206, authorizing the mayor to sign applicant resolution authorization forms for the Ship Harbor Boardwalk Restoration Project grants.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 3206 as presented. If there is no discussion, and I see no discussion, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. All those in favor of approval of the resolution say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the resolution is approved. Thank you, Ms. Johnston.
Thank you.
Our next item is a presentation on our annual stormwater maintenance plan. Aaron, go ahead.
I'm getting her up here. Oh, is it? Good evening, Mayor, City Council members. I'm Aaron Estrel, Stormwater Program Manager. I wanted to talk about the stormwater management program that we have to do every year.
You might want to adjust your mic so that you can keep it close to your.
All right.
A longer mic has been ordered.
First, I just kind of want to show you kind of an inventory of our system we have here in the city, just for reference. All of our inventory for public infrastructure we have to inspect yearly. Our private permanent BMPs, there's 194 of those, we have to also inspect annually. And catch basins, we have to inspect every 2 years. And we got our source control, we have 233 businesses in the city that we have on our inventory. We need to do 20% of those a year.
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Bolton?
Sorry, I'm going to ask for an acronym check. Can you remind me what BMP stands for, please?
Best management practices.
Thank you.
And those can be permanent or temporary. Detention ponds are permanent BMPs, bioswales. One thing we have to really get people more educated on is there's so many people in the city that still believe we have a combined stormwater and sewer system. And they believe if it goes down the drain, it ends up at the wastewater treatment plant. And so you'll hear that all the time. Oh, I thought this paint would just go to the wastewater treatment plant. I didn't know the concrete goes out to the bay. So here's just a little flyer that we could try to get out to people to let them know, hey, this is everything that touches the ground ends up out in the bay. So federal and state requirements, so we're under the Clean Water Drinking Act, which produced the NPDES. It's a National Pollution Detection and Elimination System. We are a phase 2 permit with the state. It goes by population, so most phase 1 populations are 100,000 and bigger. Every year we have to do an annual report, and part of the annual report is our stormwater management program. In the SWIMP, there is stormwater planning, public education and outreach, public involvement, our mapping, our illicit discharge, development review, existing development retrofits, source control for businesses, operation and maintenance, monitoring and reporting, and we have to report to Ecology and how we're meeting all of our requirements every year. Each new permit has new regulations that we have to do, so we're working on those for this permit cycle. So I just kind of gave an overview of a few things that we get a lot of questions on. Public education and outreach, we pay into a program we worked with Skagit County Conservation District. We also do our in-house public outreach events. We work with, again, the Skagit County Conservation District, Friends of the Salish Sea, Samish Indian Nation, and Port of Anacortes. These programs all help us meet our permit requirements. Pollution and prevention, illicit discharge is a big one. We give an annual city-wide training every year. We've done that for the last 3-4 years. Fire, police, this year we had a good turnout for it. Also part of pollution prevention is our source control inspections, construction inspections, public and private facility inspections, street sweeping, and plan review. Our plan review right now, we're doing a lot of those through third party. It helps us keep in our permit compliance. It's an extra step, but I believe it helps us meet our permit compliance. Operations and maintenance, that's another big one. John Kramer's our stormwater inspector. He does the majority of the source control and inspections. Whenever we got private and our city-owned. So city-owned, we put it in our cartograph system, and our maintenance crew gets out and gets the maintenance done. When we work with a private, an HOA, private homeowner, we work with them. A lot of times they don't know what they're supposed to be doing, so we help them work through that. A properly maintained system helps reduce flooding. It removes pollutants before reaching the waterways and improves overall water quality. So having our stormwater facilities work as they were designed helps overall water quality. So with routine inspections, cleanings, and repairs, ensure long-term functionality. Street sweeping is a big one. We have a new permit requirement. Mostly how we record how many miles we go, what we pick up. We're gonna have to start reporting how much after every street sweeping event, we have to let them know how much we have in the sweeper. So yearly, we'll have to report that. Monitoring and reporting. We're in WIRA 3, which is Water Resource Inventory Area 3. In the city of Anacortes, our waters are pretty healthy. We do not have any TMDLs, which is good news. But in order to keep it that way, that's why our IDD program needs to be strong, our source control, maintenance, and inspections. And we also participate in the SAM program, which is the Stormwater Action Monitoring Program. We have our Stormwater Master Plan that we hope to be adopted the spring of this year. This will help identify drainage issues, plan future capital projects, prioritize stormwater retrofits, and support long-term water quality goals. So in closing, our stormwater program goals is to protect marine water quality, reduce pollutants entering the Salish Sea, maintain regulatory compliance, and provide confidence that the city remains in full permit compliance with the NPDES Phase 2 and state stormwater regulations. And that's all I have for you guys tonight. If you have any questions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Esterhold. Council, do you have any questions?
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Moulton.
Thank you very much for that overview and for underscoring that a lot of people don't know that things that go on the street don't go to the water treatment plant. That's obviously really important to be called out. So thank you.
Mr. Esterhold, occasionally we get questions about the street sweeper and what its schedule is, so we could all move our cars to avoid the street sweeper and allow it to sweep more of the street. Can you address that question?
We don't have a schedule per se on which street we're going to be on. A lot of times it's also areas we haven't hit because we have to hit areas so many times a year, but we do not have a schedule for that to help with that right now. But we will be working on that with our new mapping that we have to do for ecology. We'll try to at least get it within a time frame.
There are certainly schedules in other cities, but they usually come with mandatory requirements to move your cars, and that would be a significant change from what we have now. So,
yes, sir.
Careful what you ask for, I guess. Council, any other questions?
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Hunt.
So I was interested to see that the mapping is such a significant part of the plan, and that tree cover is something that we're studying. Can
Yes.
you tell me a little bit more about where and how that helps?
Yeah, so right now, last year we worked on getting the tree canopy maps. We have that now part of our layer on GIS. This year we're working on how that would fall into what already policies and that we have already. We've just started that, but right now stormwater, they're really saying that stormwater is or tree canopy is part of stormwater treatment. So we haven't put that all together yet, but we have started the mapping process here in the city.
I think that when we saw the forest management plan a couple weeks ago, they also have some longitudinal shots that they're looking at how tree covers changed in the forest lands. Yep. So I don't know if
yeah, we worked with them last year. I forget they had someone from one of the colleges, and so we worked with them on that. So we shared that data.
Mr. Courier?
I was just curious, you mentioned that you have to monitor and report the contents that the street sweeper picks up. Can you elaborate a little bit? I'm just curious, is that, you're picking up more debris that's a negative mark, or how is that?
Well, I think the college is looking at it two ways right now because they've updated how often we have to street sweep.
Okay.
So I think they're trying to get numbers now, how much pollutant comes from the roads and how much we're picking up, and if that's going to change any of the samplings with heavy metals and sediment loads. So it's more of a study, but we're going to have to report exactly what we pick up.
Okay, so they'll test that as well as
Yep.
just look at the amount of material that's picked up.
And then that material that you pick up, you use to fill potholes?
No. It goes to our decant, and then we have to haul it off, and it goes, I think we take it to the transfer station, but it can't be put in the land. It's considered pollution. It's got a lot of, we don't know what's in it. Whatever comes off the roads, or heavy metals, off your roofs, fertilizer, it's got everything in there.
All right, thank you.
Mayor
Ms.
Walters,
Moulton?
I do have one question. One of the compliance activities is to conduct annual inspections of high-risk outfalls. How do we determine what high-risk outfalls are?
We started that last year, so we filled all of our data gaps, filled verified missing outfall information. This year, we have to map tributaries, basins, and conveyance areas with pipes 24 inches and bigger. So we're going to look, also PCBs is a problem, and we got to look, pipes are made out of concrete, and eventually going to have to test for that. That's probably going to be on the next permit, but right now we have to have an inventory of everything, and our outfalls and what they're made out of. So that's step one, but that's coming, yes.
This item is open for public comment as listed on our agenda. Is there any member of the public that would like to provide a comment on this item? Anyone online? No one online. All right. Well, if there are no more comments and no more questions from council, I will thank you, Mr. Esterholt, and we'll see you back again in a couple of weeks when we do some more stormwater planning.
Yeah, thank you.
Our next item is interlocal agreement. I'll skip reading the number for Skagit County Multiple Agency Response Team, the SMART team, contracted administrator, and Chief Floyd will present this item.
Thank you, Mayor Walters. Good evening, council members and members of the audience. I'm here tonight to ask for your approval for the interlocal agreement with Skagit County for our multiple agency response team contracted administrator. And I wanted to give you just a brief overview of how we got to where we're at today. So if you recall back in 2019, as you were walking into Safeway or whatever other store you were going to, there was signature gatherers out that were asking for you to sign supporting Initiative 940. And Initiative 940 was advertised as, let's try to get the police more training. One of the things that came out of that was the independent investigative teams that we have now. Our local team is made up of agencies in Skagit and Island counties. And the purpose of that is if there is a deadly use of force incident by an officer, we have an independent team that comes in, and it is made up of detectives and seasoned investigators that have specialized training and experience investigating those types of incidents. And the involved agencies' detectives are excluded from that particular incident. So, for example, if we had one here, all the other detectives for the agencies in Skagit and Island counties would be part of that investigation, and our detectives would be excluded. Thankfully, it is a low-frequency requirement for us to fulfill. I think the busiest year we've seen was 2 investigations, and those were from agencies out of Skagit and Island counties because they had conflicts with their teams. And so our team responded in 2 cases in Snohomish County. And I would say that our team is recognized in the state as one of the premier teams. Part of that is because of the leadership that we've had in our teams locally from its very beginning. We had some very detail-oriented individuals that were commanding those teams, and that has benefited us as these teams have continued to grow. The structure of the team not only is the detectives that make up that, but also there's a command structure. Currently, our command structure is a lieutenant from the Mount Vernon Police Department, a lieutenant from the Oak Harbor Police Department, and Captain Fuller from our own Anacortes Police Department. And those positions are mid-level managers that respond with the team to those scenes to make sure that all the industry best practices are being followed, proper investigative protocols are being adhered to, and they generally oversee the team's activities. As this has continued to evolve, the requirements each year have become increasingly more burdensome for the command members of those of our team, and the requirements that they have to meet as far as training, making sure all of the proper paperwork has been filed, that we're meeting all the requirements set forth in the Washington Administrative Code and the RCW. And it has quickly become more than just a collateral duty than any one agency's command staff can meet. And so collectively, the executives for the agencies that make up these teams decided that it is probably not cost effective and time efficient for any one of us to dedicate someone to that position full time, because we still have needs with our individual agencies. And so that is where we get to the interlocal agreement that's before you tonight. It's expanding on our current interlocal agreement where this team was created, and it's the participating agencies contributing towards a contractor to come in and fulfill the administrative roles, making sure that training is being done, making sure that all the appropriate paperwork and the proper vetting of new detectives that are coming to the team is occurring in the proper manner. So the total amount for that contract would be $50,000, and that is divided equally amongst the participating agencies, with our share being $7,142.86. So with that, I'm available for any questions, and I ask for your approval on the interlocal.
And our share of the 7,000 doesn't require you to seek any budget amendment.
So I will tell you that the discussion on this happened prior to the budget being adopted, but it wasn't until just about 2 or 3 weeks ago that Mount Vernon, who's currently in the lead command role, got all the appropriate documents to the rest of the participating agencies. So my goal was to find this money in my current budget, and that may require us to maneuver categories, but I think that it's doable for us to do.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions or discussion?
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Hunt?
Chief Litt, I just wanted to clarify, I think we all understood what you were saying. The contract is only for administrative work. If there were an incident that needed investigation, the real staff would do the investigation.
Correct. Yes. So this person is just overseeing and then making sure our team is in compliant, whether we get called to an investigation or not. The requirements from the state don't change. And just as an example of some of the work that this person would be taking on is we have the 2 investigations I mentioned previously that our team went to Snohomish County for. There's a state auditor that comes through and reviews all these cases that we have completed, making sure that the proper protocols were followed. This contractor would get all the information necessary for that audit to occur and make sure it's all in the proper order so that audit goes smoothly.
Mayor Walters?
Mr. Fantini?
If there's no other questions, I move that the City Council authorize the mayor to execute interlocal cooperative agreement 20-198-APD-002.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the interlocal agreement for the Smart Contract Administrator. If there is no discussion, we'll go ahead and take a vote. Hearing none. All those in favor of the interlocal agreement say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the interlocal agreement is approved. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Our next item is another interlocal agreement, this time with the Washington Department of Health for an overdose data to action grant. Assistant Chief McDonald, thank you for being on deck.
Good
and
evening,
take it away.
Mayor. Thank you. Thanks for welcoming me, City Council and members of the general audience. Hey, I'm coming here to present support for interlocal agreement between the Washington State Department of Health and the City of Anacortes. The grant is actually, the name of the grant is OD2AS, lots of mnemonics in the fire service, and it stands for the Overdose Data and Action in States. This is a federal grant that was originally available back in 2024 that came with a lot of requirements, and since the initial disbursement of granting funds, some residual money was left over, and our community paramedic, who is phenomenally well connected, not only in our community, but just countywide and even statewide, heard about this money, and the money is some leftover money that the Department of Health, Washington State Department of Health, was willing to offer to any CARES program, of which our community paramedic program is a CARES program. Initially, there was about $15,000 available, and after Steve went ahead and applied for the grant, there were some additional funds that were being offered to him, and the total amount is $19,696. Now, what do we have to do for this? We actually we meet all the obligations of this grant. We provide education, we leave Narcan leave behind kits. We also provide resources for families or people that we go out and take care of that may have overdoses. What I'm asking for tonight is that you would support this, and it does not, there's no match to it, and it is a very, very short window, and we have some reporting to do. Two reporting periods, one is going to be in June and one is going to be in September, and all of this information we currently collect. So it is not that we have to go out and create new analytics to fulfill this grant.
Thank you. And Council, as you might recall, this is one of the grants that we are relying on to help support the 2026 expansion of the from 0.5 to 1.0 FTE of the administrative assistant position. Correct. In case you were thinking of voting no, that you already gave a head nod to.
Mayor Walters?
Ms. Hunt.
So one question about this contract. It does name our current wonderful community paramedic by name. If that position were not held by Steve or had some vacancy during the term of the grant, are we at risk of losing some of that funding?
I don't believe so. I think it is for the program, not for Steve.
Okay. We would want to make sure of that before we sign it. We want to make sure that we have the funds regardless.
Good point. We will make sure of that before we sign it. Yeah.
Mayor Walters.
Mr. Fantini.
Just a kind of a quick observation that I wanted to mention. It's not so much a question, but I got a lot of questions when we allocated that $250,000 to the Star Center with our opioid funds. But what I think is really great about this is it really shows how Anacortes is kind of taking more of a layered approach with the opioid epidemic. We've got that great regional partnership now through the Star Center, but now here this is money coming through a federal grant, which is a different source of funds to help create even more help with the opioid epidemic. So I just think that's kind of great as we get a lot of questions of why do we put money regionally versus just locally, and here is a great example of why, because there's other opportunities out there where we can get some money to be specifically used here locally.
Well, that and very clearly the regional facility is an important component of that whole cycle.
Mayor Walters?
Mr. Courier.
I move that City Council authorize the mayor to execute interlocal cooperative agreement number 26127-AFD-001 between the City of Anacortes and State of Washington Department of Health.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the interlocal agreement with Washington DOH for the Overdose Data to Action in States grant. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. Hearing none, the vote is on the interlocal agreement with Washington DOH for the OD2AS grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, and the interlocal agreement is approved, and I will verify that bit before signing it tomorrow.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Council, you really have been moving right along here in our agenda, and now it's time to slow down and strap in for a presentation on our wastewater treatment plant alternatives analysis. We are taking a methodical, measured, careful approach to changes to our wastewater treatment plant, and I think you in the audience will see through this the dwindling audience I see, will see through this presentation that there are some alternatives here for us to choose from, and we will make a careful choice.
Mayor, Council, thank you. My name is Brian Walker. I am the manager down at the wastewater treatment plant. I am here to introduce our presenter for tonight, but a quick introduction first. In 1992, Anacortes built a brand new wastewater treatment plant, and for the solids produced by that new plant, a sewage sludge incinerator. In the ensuing 34 years, this city has produced roughly 28,000 dry tons, or 140,000 wet tons, or 280 million wet pounds of biosolids cake. Don't ask me why we call it cake. That's roughly 14 to 15,000 dump trucks full of product. And in those 34 years, 0 biosolids have been trucked out of the city. Every pound of biosolids produced by this city, plus quite a bit that came from off-island, has been run through that incinerator and reduced to atmospheric gases and sterile mineral ash, which gets sent to a landfill. In an era when disposing of biosolids can cost anywhere from $100 to $200 per ton, the city has certainly achieved a good return on investment for their machine. That all said, 34 years is a long time, and in those 3+ decades, many things have changed. The science surrounding all aspects of biosolids has grown exponentially. Many technologies have matured, while some have not quite yet. Capital and operational expenses have obviously gone up, and financial realities have become imposing. Regulatory compliance has become much more difficult and expensive, and the biosolids industry finds itself at both a regulatory and a technological inflection point. But most importantly, the city's existing equipment is nearing the end of its service life. The repairs are becoming more significant and more costly, and a complete rebuild or replacement of the equipment is fast approaching. If the city wishes to continue incinerating biosolids, very significant expenses will be incurred within the next 3 to 5 years. Now, 5 years ago, in 2021, the city was presented with an opportunity to pursue an alternative biosolids technology. The city declined to pursue that particular option at that particular moment, and instead deferred the decision-making for ongoing consideration. In those past 5 years, the team at the wastewater treatment plant has continued incinerating, continued ongoing repairs, and made significant improvements in regulatory compliance. But ultimately, the need to make a long-term decision has only increased. So today, with you, we are reigniting this conversation. Our goal here is to achieve an actionable plan for this city's future of biosolids handling. Our goal is a transparent, defensible, durable, and most importantly, actionable plan. A collective decision made not just by a single person, but by an entire team of stakeholders, including multiple levels of management, industry experts, the operators and supervisors that will be expected to run and maintain the system, and the representatives of the taxpayers who will ultimately foot the bill. At the end of this process, the city will have made a clear decision to either continue incineration and fund it for an extended time frame, or begin the planning and the funding process for another technology. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Greg Makos, our representative from Team Brown and Caldwell. Your title is Solids and Energy Practice Leader, Professional Engineer, and an Industry Biosolids Expert.
And importantly, before we get started here, because this has come up before, the question before us is about how to extend the life of the current water treatment plant for the capacity that it already has. That we're not talking about expanding the plant to accommodate new capacity. That's not really the point here. So this is not intended to cover the costs of new development. This is requirement whether we expand the city in terms of population or housing at all. All right, take it away.
Mayor Walters, Council, good to see you, and also good to be here. Always a pleasure for me to come up here. I met 3 weeks ago with the Public Works Committee. I am a stakeholder also in Anacortes. My parents live here, so it's always a pleasure to come up here and visit them. They're great cooks. Brian touched on a lot of the legacy elements of your incinerator. It's been loyal and faithful to you. It's been doing a great job at reducing your biosolids waste that leaves the facility in the form of ash. But as Brian mentioned, we need to look forward. Can we stay that path, or is there another path? And we want to do this in a way, Brian mentioned, defensible, transparent. We don't want it to be one person's pet project. We want it to be durable. There's always not sensitive to succession planning, whether it's staffing levels, technology changes, and so forth. So today, I want to present to you an update of what we've been doing for the last year, working with Brian and his staff. Also want to engage you through the form of a survey, which I'll detail later on. And the idea here is to get input from everyone, from executives to operations, engineering, management, maintenance, and go through a prescribed planning process that Brown & Caldwell uses with clients all across the country, big and small.
And you should go ahead and drag that Anacortes box off the screen someplace so that we can see all the slides.
There you go.
It's probably about as good as it's going to get. That's great.
Sorry for the small print on this slide. I wanted to just give you a sense of how does Anacortes fit in compared to some other utilities? Well, incineration's kind of unique. Not a lot of folks do it. There's 5 incinerators in Region 10. You're one of them. I should say past tense because Linwood has turned theirs off. Edmonds has moved to a gasification system. We're currently working on Vancouver, planning to move away from incineration towards a resource recovery path. And Bellingham, recently we're working on the design for major air pollution control upgrades for their 2 incinerators. So there's not a whole lot of incinerators. That's kind of a general statement. Most of the biosolids in the state, 65 to 70% on a poundage, goes east of the mountains. It goes to land application sites. One of the largest is Boulder Park. A lot of your neighboring municipalities send their digested solids there. It gets put on the ground and dryland crop as a source of carbon, phosphorus, and nitrogen. And they substitute petroleum-based fertilizers. Other examples, Tacoma TAGRO program. That is a nationally recognized program that DC Water and others have modeled themselves after. I live in Tacoma. I use TAGRO in my raised beds. Great product. But other smaller outfits here, most digest their biosolids. You don't have a digestion process that is more footprint intensive, labor intensive, costly. But the vast majority of treatment plants generally digest whether aerobically or anaerobically. Generally, smaller outfits can do so, get by with aerobic digestion. Anaerobic digestion is typically needed once you get to a certain size. Oh, did I?
Maybe need to, there you go.
There we go. Sorry, just fell asleep. So this is just a roadmap illustration of where we are. We've been working with Brian since March, and the orange boxes here are the activities that we've completed, and the blue ones are the ones ahead of us. We were asked to pause our efforts in November timeframe and have just recently picked things up again. We brought in our national expert on incineration, Lloyd Winchell, who came in and did an evaluation of your incinerator. We looked at some options for how to bypass your incinerator in case of an abrupt shutdown. And then we initiated the solids planning process, during which the first step was to identify the mandatory goals and evaluation criteria. These are your must-haves. And so we created your staff through a series of workshops and questionnaires, and I'll show you the highlights of those later today. And those will be items that we're going to seek your input on in this process. We did a regulatory permit assessment of impacts of permits that are impacting your system, and then we also did a survey, an informal preliminary survey to get a sense of the biosolids market. What's the general awareness of businesses and individuals in the region around biosolids, biochar, ash, et cetera, other residuals. So some highlights here from your incinerator evaluation. We looked at, we qualified them as near-term or long-term improvements, as 0 to 5 year and 5 to 10 year. And based on, in March, your incinerator was down for a pre-planned maintenance. So we were actually able to go inside the incinerator. It's definitely a first time for me to poke my head in there. Based on interviews with staff, a review of your record drawings and your maintenance history, we identified a series of improvements. I'd be happy to go into more detail on those or follow up with you on that if you'd like. Those improvements resulted in this is a high range in cost because we're at the planning level. So we are creating Association for the Advancement of Cost Engineering, or ACE, Class 5 planning level estimates. These are huge ranges because we don't know all the details. And these costs, therefore, are always minus 50% plus 100% on those numbers. I am reluctant to give exact numbers because then that number will stick in everyone's mind. These are intentionally wide ranges. And the idea is as we go through a project, from class 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that range narrows down to a final cost estimate, which is typically plus or minus 10%. I would be doing you a disservice to just give you a number, so I have to always tell you that number and that range. I've gotten in trouble for that before. We also looked at solids bypass evaluation. This is in case you have an abrupt shutdown of the incinerator, which has not happened. You've never had to truck your solids off-site due to the awesome work that your crew does at the plant. But they did want to have this added flexibility in case it got shut down and you didn't want to truck liquid sludge. So we looked at an option on how you could bypass pumping your cake, which currently now just gets pumped right into the incinerator, to pumping it instead to a truck where it could then be sent for disposal. And that planning level cost range is shown up there at $180K to $730K. All these costs, I should say, also do include contingencies, standard adders, overhead, profit numbers. They don't include engineering, but these include construction costs. So there's percentage adders at the planning level that account for a lot of those, what we call typically allied costs or soft costs. So it's not just hardware. I'm not sure how familiar you are with the quad L or triple L subsections of CFR, but this was one activity that Brian and his team had us look at, and that was to understand how far we were below the 50% rule. So back in 2010, subpart quad L was introduced so that continued investment in incineration facilities would not allow them to be grandfathered into old emission limits. The point being is if I spend so much money on incinerator, by the time I replace all the components in the incinerator, I have a new incinerator, but I'm going to be held to old limits, which are higher and less stringent. So the quad L limits are more stringent, require different air pollution control equipment to achieve. One of the thresholds that they put in there in this requirement is the 50% rule, which has some gray areas into it, but we took a very conservative approach. Thanks to the awesome documentation work, probably the best I've seen of all the maintenance records. It made it relatively painless, because other times we have to dig into record drawings and data. The team was able to provide us a big chunk of information about all their maintenance costs. We compile that with the original cost of the incinerator, and we come up with a value. We even went conservative and grabbed certain subsystems that might not even technically be interpreted to be part of that rule to be more conservative. And we estimate that you have about another $4.6 million that you can spend on the incinerator before triggering the 50%. Two caveats: you can't change the way you operate the incinerator, and you can't change its capacity, in addition to the 50% rule. I don't think there's any plans to change the way you operate the incinerator or change its capacity. There is no need to do so. We did take an estimate. This is, again, a planning level estimate, the last bullet there on the screen. What would it take to upgrade to a quad L? This is a completely new air pollution control treatment train, and would require an extension of about 500 square feet of your building. This is a planning level cost of $8.4 million. Remember, again, 8.4 minus 50 plus 100%. That is not inclusive of the numbers you saw on the previous slide for 5 and 5 to 10 year maintenance improvements. So the planning process. This is a prescribed process, and it's designed for us to be objective. I should say, Brown and Cobble, myself, we are technology agnostic. I don't want to say we don't care what you go with, but it's important that we remove ourselves from this process, because you're going to operate it, you're going to own it, and you need to be happy with it, and you're going to pay for it. So we do not have shares or stock in any of these treatment technologies that we're looking at, and we want to make sure to remove ourselves from that. So the mandatory goals I mentioned earlier, we take those and we screen a universe of technologies, from tried and tested to embryonic, the full suite. We have looked at all of those technologies. We apply your mandatory goals and screen them out. We then take those and the evaluation criteria that you identify and develop end-to-end alternatives. That means end-to-end means from the moment we pick up the solids from the liquid side of your plant to the moment it leaves your plant. We then run that through our solids, water, and energy evaluation tool, or suite. And that will give us the ability to tell you all the inputs and outputs for that particular system. How much chemicals, how much labor, how much power, how much greenhouse gas emissions, cost, maintenance, all that. And that is based on years and hundreds of projects, maybe thousands of projects across the country for similar technologies. We then take that and then vet that down. We develop 6 end-to-end alternatives. That's what our scope with you is. And then you will be engaged down the road for a multi-criteria decision analysis effort where we get to rank the criteria, and we can actually live play around with those criteria and see how the benefit scores of those alternatives fluctuate. This is a work product that's on the screen that you'll see. We'll have this is an example, of course, but you'll have, as you see on the right, your various alternatives and alternatives. You'll have a cost, and then you'll have a relative benefit score. The ideal is that you're in what we call the Goldilocks zone, which is that green star, low cost, high benefit score. And that's how, and that will, you'd be surprised at how that will fluctuate around that grid based on whether maintenance is more important or greenhouse gas emissions are more important or permit compliance is more important. We'll see where you end up. So I mentioned earlier, mandatory goals that your team came up with is the technology must fit within the physical space of the plant. There's a possible, understand, option of an off-site location owned by the city that could be available. Technology must have one installation that is operating that's of similar size. Technology needs to be able to adapt to changes in regulations and prepare for future possible regulations. Acronym you might have heard is PFAS. We can touch on that. Technology should not require anything that's proprietary or consumable. You know, if a technology provider goes out of business, you don't want to be stuck holding a technology that you can't replace or repair. Technology needs to produce a product that can be sent to multiple outlets. We don't want to produce something that only one outlet limits you. In that sense, that's a vulnerability. You become dependent on that outlet for your final product and generally can leave you stranded. Technology also cannot be required to be staffed 24/7. It can operate 24/7, but it just can't have to be staffed. Again, this is what your wastewater public works team came up with, and I'll touch on this again in a bit. The evaluation criteria that they came up with as well are here on the screen: environmental, social, financial, technical, regulatory. Not in any particular order. The order will be decided down line in this process. So this is a slide that, how am I doing on time, by the way? Good? Okay. This slide here
We're talking about tens of millions of dollars. You take as much time as you need.
Oh, okay. All right, just so this slide gives you an overview of the universe of solid stabilization technologies. This is all of them. There are some very embryonic ones there that are in orange, like plasma synthesis reformers. I don't think that we'll be seeing one of those in Anacortes, but to give you a sense, we're looking at everything. The second column from the left, anaerobic digestion, is the workhorse for solid stabilization technologies across the United States. It has been for years. It's the most mature. And then there's the green, light green, which are more innovative. They might have less installations, but are starting to become more and more proven. This slide shows you that initial screening that those mandatory goals cut out. So to meet those mandatory goals that your staff have, now we're down to these options.
One of the mandatory goals was that it not require 24-hour staffing, which I think is sensible because we don't currently staff 24 hours. However, if a process met all of our other goals but required 24-hour staffing, maybe we would be interested in considering it. I mean, maybe staff wouldn't be interested, but do you know were any screened out that happened to meet all the goals but that one?
No, most of the ones that typically would be the high temperature technologies that are in the right column. So none of those that got screened out would apply to that.
Okay, thank you.
Where was I? So as you can see, we've cut it down quite a bit. All right, so this is a starting point. We're going to use these as ways to come up with those end-to-end alternatives. We're going to come up with up to 6 of those and eventually narrow those down. I wanted to touch on a couple things here. The biosolids market assessment had some interesting insight. I think there is a Class A market out there, and for the benefit of the public, Class A intends that beneficial use of biosolids is unrestricted. So a Class A biosolid byproduct can be used by the public, and you can use it in your own garden, you can use it for farming, you can use it for a myriad of uses. Class B, not so much. Class B needs to be land applied. That means that there are still viruses, bacteria alive in it, but it can be used for land application and agricultural purposes, but not for direct public use. So there was a general sense that of soil blenders in the general region that had an awareness about biosolids. There could be an opportunity for partnerships. We felt like that the number of them here, especially in Skagit, offered possibly there's infrastructure for soil blending already in place. That might seem obvious to you, but it's not obvious in other areas and locales like in Seattle, for example. I would say that there are some opportunities for biosolids Class A use, but there needs to be quite a lot of education, a lot of outreach. That takes time, that takes money. Class B outlets, if you do go a Class A route, it's always good to have a backup plan. Case in point, Pierce County, for example, they do Sound Grow. It's a fertilizer product that is Class A, but they also have a backup Class B option in case they're unable to get rid of the product or in case there's a malfunction with their dryer, they can send it east of the mountains. I think that there's always an opportunity for networking. Brian and his team generally participate in Northwest Biosolids on a regular basis. That's the who's who community of land use and beneficial use of residuals. The people that developed, we're kind of lucky to have them here in the Northwest. Dr. Sally Brown from University of Washington and Chuck Henry were the ones that created the biosolids rule in the first place that has led the entire country to use biosolids on the ground and in forestry. So networking there's always a lot of technological providers that are there, but generally it's a lot of utilities sharing ideas and thoughts on what they do. So the next steps, when I met with the Public Works Committee, they said, you know what, you should come here and talk to the mayor and the council, and let's this is a big decision, so let's all get engaged. And so shortly after, later this week, we have prepared an online form for you to fill out that will give you some background and will allow you the opportunity to agree or add mandatory goals and evaluation criteria to what your staff have already identified and what I went over here. So your question about the staffing 24/7, I would say that is a great location to document that particular comment. Later on in the process, later this year, probably based on our schedule, October, November, we'll plan on having the MCDA workshop, and that'll be the workshop where we'll be able to, after some pre-work gets sent out before that, we'll send that pre-work to you as well in the similar format. Your team will get that at the same time. That will allow us to understand what's most important. And then once we get to the workshop, we'll have the ability to tweak those weights, just to play around with the numbers. Oh, maybe let's not care about cost, for example. Well, sometimes you'd be surprised. Sometimes that elucidates some changes in the alternatives that might inform your decision. Again, Topher Jones, our PhD in decision science, will be the one that's leading that whole process. He's the one who's developed this methodology. He jokes that we should use it to buy our own personal cars, vehicles. In the same way, you care about mileage, you care about aesthetic, you care about comfort. We'll have to give and take a little bit on all those different options, and we'll vet what we care about most as a team. So right now, that's where we're at. That's our first formal engagement with you, and we think that's really important to get a transparent result out of this entire planning process. Ultimately, the end result of this is come March, based on our current schedule, we'll have a preferred alternative. So we'll get your input on the criteria. I should just mention what I presented here today could change if if a mandatory goal is added. That screening could be impacted, although based on what I told you today, it's unlikely if that was the one, but if you have others that come up that could impact that screening, we'll circle back based on those results. And then the next step will be we'll present to your team, not to you, those 6 alternatives. Happy to continue to engage you. I'm happy to come up to Anacortes anytime and present those in multiple steps if the council would like me to as well. So that's all I had for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. And you have other slides in the packet that talk about how each of those methods were screened out, and none of the 24-hour boxes are checked. Council, do you have any questions? Well, this certainly will not be your only opportunity, but Mr. McDougall.
Mayor Walters. A question I kind of missed at the Public Works Committee meeting, actually looking, I'm glad you're on slide 12 here, looking at these options, are they all standalone options, or is there any like combination, like maybe we want to do some amount of composting and then like some amount of some other, or is it purely from a cost perspective or a practical perspective, you just do one?
In some of these cases, they're all going to be, there's going to be some combinations, but there are some like mesophilic anaerobic digestion is probably like a typical standalone one, but we may have to combine that, for example, on the left column, thermal hydrolysis with anaerobic digestion.
Okay.
We're going to be puzzling together several different ones. I've told the team, though, not to start that activity yet because we need to get your input, and we don't want to have wasted effort on an alternative that might get screened out. So,
got it. Thank you.
Mr. Courier.
I'm just curious, too, are the majority of these options ones that could be, thank you, are majority of these options ones that could be placed on the current site with the adjacent lot, or are there a large amount of these that would have to be created at an off-site location? Just based on the ones that you have identified on the screen?
So that's the next phase. When we develop the end-to-end alternatives, we're going to vet those. There are definitely some here that are going to be challenging to fit on site. The mandatory goal will be to do so. Here's an example, though. If that off-site location goes away, and as part of this latest iteration on the mandatory goals, you say that's not an option, it needs to stay on the site, then that would kind of, as an example, that would probably eliminate composting. Composting is footprint intensive. It's great, but it is footprint intensive, and that's an example. If, for example, you said we want to make sure that the technology eliminates PFAS, because we hear a lot of PFAS in the news, well, that means pretty much only what's on the right there is what would manage to pass the screening. It would obviously simplify things a lot, right? Some of these may not fit on site, or some of these combinations will not fit on the site. So when we're developing these alternatives, we're developing site figures, process flow diagrams for each one of those, because we have to input them into our model. And so we need to make sure that they do fit. We need to make sure that they are alternatives that are realistic and implementable. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, it's just helpful kind of getting a broad perspective on it. And then one other question, too, as far as lead time on these, do they vary significantly based on project? Is it like 3 to 5 year, or I have no concept of that, like what that looks like once you had something approved and we're kind of moving forward with it?
When you say lead time, are you talking about equipment, or are you saying just overall project life?
Overall project.
That's a great question. This is going to be this is a complex project. I mean, and I should also mention, we are evaluating as a base case upgrading your incinerator to Quad L. That is going to be something we look at and compare these two. Generally, the next phase of this project, once you select an alternative, is preliminary design and an engineering report, and then you go into detailed design. I'm reluctant to give you an overall duration because I don't know what technology is going to be selected. Some of these are heavily reliant on manufacturers, so they are a box. An example would be a gasifier or a pyrolyzer. I rely heavily on a manufacturer, whereas a digester is pretty much a custom design. There's not as much package, so the design window can change. I would love to have the opportunity to come back and maybe present that at the end of this process. Once an alternative is selected, then I can come in and tell you an implementation schedule. And it would probably benefit the city at some point to, once they make this decision, to do a facility plan of the site to see how this all ties in with other existing facilities and what impacts it would have and how it would be implemented and phased in.
I mean, just the last question I had the privilege of getting a tour recently with Brian and Marsh and I both went out there. It was fabulous seeing what's been done and how everything's maintained. So it was super impressive. But just your thoughts, like, again, I'm sure it's part of this whole consideration, but taking what we're doing now and upgrading that versus looking at whole new methods. I mean, is there a sense that that is a valid direction to go, or?
I want to remain objective on this process, right? I don't want to influence it. I definitely know where the operations staff feels. It's been a reliable, trusted piece of equipment, but it's not unheard of for an incinerator to last 50 years. There are several in the country, a lot in the Midwest and Northeast. However, if you're then going to ask me, if I invest this amount of money in upgrading this incinerator, can you reliably tell me it will last another 25 years? I can't offer that, right? I cannot offer you a determinate service life on an upgraded piece of equipment, unless it's entirely replaced. So if you're looking for that sort of comfort, you might not get that. But in reality, if you put money into this system up to the 4.6 million that I mentioned that you have to play with until you trigger that 50%, you can definitely get several years that are more than enough for the planning and engineering timeline that I'm thinking this will have to take.
Thank you.
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Moulton?
Thank you for this presentation. I'm wondering, when we see this survey, if there will be sort of a pros and cons or any kind of ranking of the 6 mandatory attributes of these, or anything that shows which ones are the most space intensive, or that create the most greenhouse gases, or will there be any kind of an overview, or is it just like these are the processes?
What we're going to give you is a series of questions. We're going to tell you what your goals are. It's not important to even know the processes right now. It's what are your goals. So you'll see the goals that I showed up on the screen. You'll have an ability to score those, rank those in terms of your preference, and then add others. The same with the evaluation criteria. And so once we get that, then we can start considering what the options are. It's important to not have prior knowledge.
Right.
It's actually better to not have prior knowledge.
Right.
Because that will influence
that will inform what choices come forward.
Correct, because I see where you're going with that. It's like, I don't want to add a mandatory goal that might preclude a pretty good technology, right? I think that's maybe a concern that your question comes from. That's a one. I wish I had Topher Jones here, our decision analysis guy, to kind of dive more into detail, but that's intentional. It's a good thing. We all arrive at the table with preconceived notions about technologies. Your staff does, I do, it's obvious, but we repeatedly made sure that we screened that out as part of this activity. So it's meant to be that way.
Okay.
I'm not going light on the survey to hide anything. It's more to split the two efforts.
Right, and to prevent bias from making decisions for us based on what we think we know already, which
Correct.
we might even not. Okay.
I would say my experience in the industry and it's happened to me on a project, but when there's a strong bias by one person or a small group of people, and those people then leave, typically those projects or those programs are not successful. We want something that withstands the test of time. And I think that doing it this way, it's proven to be the positive in my experience thus far in the industry.
Okay, that's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mayor Walters.
Mr. Fantini.
Just a couple of quick questions. First, when it comes to, and maybe we're going to get some of this in the packet, but why are people moving away from incinerators?
Well, one of the challenges with incinerators is if you're going to build a new one or you're going to upgrade yours to a point that you get to this quad L, one, they're not inexpensive. They are an expensive technology. They are also onerous from a permitting perspective. There are elevated permitting costs that you don't have on other alternatives, and some utilities just don't want to bear that cost, both in time and personnel. I can think your staff can speak. There is a lift associated with the permitting associated with an incinerator. In fact, I don't believe that you actually have an operating permit, and this incinerator was installed in commissioned in 1992. So that is definitely one element. They all are of the same vintage, I believe, generally in the 90s. There are trends in our industry where certain processes are popular or in vogue, as it happens in other industries. In the 90s, incineration was popularized, as well as composting. There's not a lot of new composting designs that are going in, but there were quite a few. If you had the cheap land east of the mountains, you have cheap land, a lot of space. Composting is still used, but here, let's call on the western seaboard where land is expensive, you see less and less of those. So there are just trends that way. The technology is completely viable. There are new incinerators that do get installed. It's not a low-cost option. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Another question that I had was, so you've mentioned that 4.6 number a couple times of the estimate of what we have that we can spend going forward before we're automatically become the quad. We have to do the 8 million plus for the quad L.
Yep.
Do we feel confident that 4.6 million will get us through until we have that new system? How fast will we go through 4 point?
Well, with regular annually planned maintenance, I would say, would you like to comment on that? I can say that you don't want to go right up to the 4.6 million.
Of course.
Okay, because that is still a negotiation that would have to happen with Northwest Clean Air, which we have not done on this front. Okay, so this is an estimate. It's a conservative estimate that gives you some runway, that allows you the runway, I would say, to start planning for the next steps for the future of your plant. And that 5 to 10 year time frame.
Okay. And then
And those numbers, I should say, the numbers are based on all the maintenance information provided as of last year, right? So, and it was very detailed information. I would say highly reliable. I feel my team feels really confident in the numbers that we got. And we've done these activities with other municipalities and not had near the detail of documentation that your team offered.
Okay, and then as I'm going through and filling out the form that you'll send us, just kind of one question I have is so what happens if, for instance, we pick something that doesn't do much with PFAS, right? And then the regulatory environment changes. If we've just put in a brand new or refurbished or whatever, and then the regulatory environment changes and we have to do something more for PFAS, we would still be on the hook for that.
Yes, correct. So for the benefit also of the public, PFAS is polyfluoroalkyl substances or perfluoroalkyl substances. Is a whole family, thousands of chemicals, generally found in cosmetics and food wrapping, generally associated in wastewater with landfill leachate or heavy industrial areas. Currently, the law is SB 5033. You are required starting January, and you have about, I think, to June of 2028 to collect at least one PFAS sample on your biosolids. I believe that the city participated in Ecology's voluntary sample program, and I looked at your PFAS results, and they are in line with, and actually kind of below comparable municipal wastewater utilities. So I didn't see any red flags with that data. Granted, it is one sample point, so it's a good idea to collect that data, and even though those samples aren't cheap, I believe they could be anywhere in the 10 to 15,000 per sample. It is probably a good idea to collect that data over a period of time. To your question, right now, that is the only requirement for PFAS in the state of Washington. State of Washington ecology representatives at various conferences have been providing regulatory updates. Of course, everyone's concerned about, is there going to be a limit? I think that they're looking at what other states are doing. I think that if we would hope that they would look at a limit that is a numeric limit that is above what you have in your wastewater. So it is unlikely that unless some large industry comes in town or some major change in your wastewater occurs that contributes PFAS to it, it's the limit numbers that we're talking about you're unlikely to come close to those. But yes, if you do select an alternative where you rely on biosolids land application, and as it has happened to some of our clients, there is some reservation from farmers in receiving the biosolids just because of the association with PFAS. That is a risk, yes. Even if the risk is legitimate or not, because the exposure pathways with PFAS, you have way more direct exposure pathways from cosmetics, other household products, than you do from biosolids that get land applied, then uptaken by crop, and then fed to animals, and then into your food source. So I would say that is a risk. It's a non-zero risk.
Thank you.
Mayor Walters.
Ms. Cleveland-McGrath.
Thank you. At our committee level meeting, we talked about the fact that a number of years ago when this came up this last time, there was a lot of pressure and urgency to make a decision to go in a different direction because of some of our reporting when it comes to mercury and cadmium. Did I pronounce that right? And fortunately, staff has been able to make adjustments and get those levels below within requirements. So that's a really positive thing that we were able to make modifications. The other thing that came up was the fact that, was mentioned that the Northwest Clean Air Agency is now kind of the regulator. Is that correct? Can you
of your air permit?
For the permit. So
Yep.
Can you speak? I know we're talking about what we want and what design works well for us for the cost we have and our limitations of space. But once we make that decision, what is the process for permitting and approval by the state or the federal government? Can you speak to that at all? I assume that's pretty complicated.
Well, I'm not trying to weasel out of that one, but it depends on what alternative gets selected, right? Some of these alternatives will have minimal air permitting, so you will not have to work with NWACA, who promulgates EPA in this region of the state. When an alternative is selected as part of that preliminary design and engineering report, typically we also do a permitting matrix. So that informs you, okay, based on this design, we expect here are the major permitting elements that you'll have to do. Most of the high temperature and high temperature ones are the ones that are likely going to have to deal with some sort of more advanced air permitting effort with Northwest Clean Air. Northwest Clean Air still will be involved if you have like boilers or air emissions for odor and such, but those are much less tedious, less cumbersome permitting efforts. Then there's also the permitting effort with ecology, and the engineering report process is an actual document required by WAC that has a specific list of things that you need to include in it. And that is a process through which how ecology generally will review and approve this process and make sure that the city of Anacortes is making a reasonable investment for its community and in the environment. I'm sure I'm missing some other environmental permitting steps in there, but that generally, once an alternative is selected, we would hire a permitting specialist to review that and identify a whole permitting matrix.
Council, any other questions? All right, well, this is going to be a long process that both council and the public is going to want to track throughout its lifespan. So I think that this would be an excellent candidate for a project webpage on our website, including this presentation, the packet, the future survey where we will express our affinity for mesophilic anaerobic digestion and thermal chemical hydrolysis, so that the public also has transparency into what the council expresses as its survey results, and then the next steps all after that. So looking forward to getting to a result, but we should all appreciate the process along the way. Thank you for your assistance. Anything else from Brown and Caldwell or staff?
No, thank you for your time today, and thanks for the privilege of presenting to you and the people of Anacortes.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for keeping the existing wastewater treatment plant running in the meantime. This is our last agenda item, so I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting tonight. Thank you.